What is up, my friends? You are very, very welcome along to Sunday night's late night agenda, where, of course, I'm going to do my best to take you through where we're at with this summer's transfer window. Today has been another very interesting day in Liverpool circles. The travelling squad for the friendlies in Hong Kong and Japan have been announced, and I guess the big surprise in it is no Federico Chiesa in the travelling squad. Now, we've had mixed answers as to why this might be. Fabrizio believes he's been sold. James Pearce is trying to toe the company line a little bit, but ultimately I do think he's going to be sold. We're going to go through and tell you what is possible and what isn't possible. I'm going to tell you why I think Liverpool can still spend a lot of money this summer. And of course, here to answer any questions or topics that you guys would like to discuss. It is truly a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you to everybody earlier on who alerted me to the fact that I'm a boomer who doesn't know how to work technology. And yes, the original video earlier was on mute, but I tell you what, I got a good chuckle reading through your comments. They were absolutely wonderful and in the spirit that I would expect as well. Lots of people saying, Craig, I don't know what you said, but I agree with you 100%, and thank you. And I did upload, well, a second attempt at it where obviously the sound was working, but this is what happens when you leave me alone with technology. So, ladies and gents, where to start off this evening? I mean, I've a lot I want to run through. I've done out a list of numbers that I think is reasonable, and when you actually write down the potential outgoings as well as the outgoings that have actually happened, and you see the number that's possible to recoup, you can see why Liverpool's transfer business this summer is possible. We're also going to run you through some thoughts from Mo Chatra, who's been discussing the finances of it as well. We will take you through the very latest with regards to Liverpool's search for a centre-back. We'll talk about RODRYGO. We'll talk about the friendly behind closed doors today against Stoke as well, that Liverpool won 5-0. It featured a Darwin Nunez hat-trick, a goal from young Rio, and it also featured one from Federico. So lots to talk about, as well as, of course, the first 45 minutes in a Liverpool shirt for Florian Wirtz. Those highlights are up on the Liverpool channel at the moment. If you'd like to have a look at them, they're on All Red, and I think they might be on their YouTube channel as well. So, as I said, lots to discuss, my friends. And look, the big breaking news, I guess, of the day is that Liverpool have agreed that fee with Eintracht Frankfurt for Hugo Ekitike. We did break this story late last night after David Ornstein, well, dropped an Ornstein bomb on us. So we came on and discussed that one. And yeah, look, it's been confirmed today, as we mentioned. It's a figure that comes to about 95 million euro all in, including add-ons. And fair to say, Liverpool fans have met this with a bit of a mixed reaction. I've been looking through loads of the comments, and not just the video that we done, but of course on other platforms as well. And Liverpool fans unsure. I think a lot of people think maybe we've paid a bit too much for Hugo Ekitike, but look, I've been honest with you guys all the way through and said, I don't know. I'm not going to be the one that tells you whether this is a good signing or not, but it is a signing in an area that we badly needed one in, and I very much do trust the process. So, let's get cracking. Isak isn't even worth 100, said Aaron Waddell. Look, I agree, and I've said this many times. I think Isak's real market value is probably somewhere between 90 and 100 million. But in a world where there are not a whole load of top-notch strikers, and certainly not too many available, it is a seller's market, so Newcastle could, of course, demand a big premium on any signing of Alexander Isak. But tonight, I think we're down to three main targets, in my humble opinion. You can't rule out Malik Fofana as a potential, but with Luis Diaz looking like he's closing in on the departure from Liverpool, I started to look at what's possible and what isn't possible. And if it's okay with everyone, I'd like to run you through some numbers, if that's okay to kick us off tonight, because loads of people asking how we can afford to do this, and I'll get into that in more detail in a while. But I ran through our potential sales this summer, as well as the sales we've already made, and I want to know what you think of this list. Now, I've left off Ibrahim Konate because I think either way, if Ibu stays, great. If he doesn't stay, we'll sell him and probably use the money to buy Mark Gay. So I left Konate out of this list, but I've put together a list of our summer sales. And hear me out, and then we'll go into it. So Kelleher, about 17 to 18 million is the fee we got there from Brentford. Kwanzaa was somewhere between 35 and 37 million. Darwin Nunez, when he moves on, will be for about 50 million. Luis Diaz, if he departs, will be about 80 million. That's at the fee that Liverpool are asking for. On top of that, we have Harvey Elliott, who could well move on. And I've gone for the lower figure there of 40 million because that's what we want if it's a buyback clause. Tyler Morton, 15 million. Ben Doak, 25 million. the 10 million we got from Trent, the 3 million we got from Nat Phillips going to West Brom. 15 million is my best guess at what we get for Chiesa. And when you add all those numbers together, astoundingly, it comes to £310 million. And that is what Liverpool could recoup this summer. So that's why this is all possible. That's why the signing of another forward or two was possible, as well as a centre-back or two. 310 million. If we can bring that in and have a net spend of about 150, 160, after all the business we've done, would be astounding. But running through that list, I don't think I've exaggerated a single number on it. So once again, to run through it. Kelleher, 17 to 18. Kwanzaa, 35 to 37. Darwin, 50. Diaz, 80. Elliott, 40. Morton, 15. Costa, 17. Doak, 25. Trent, 10. Phillips, 3 million. Chiesa, 15. That's 310 million. Now, even if you say I've gone a bit high on a few of those numbers and round it down, you're still talking somewhere between 280 and 300 million in potential sales. That's given Liverpool a lot of freedom. And none of those players, bar maybe Diaz, are ones that we weren't expecting to lose. So there we go. That's how this is possible. Now, granted, we spent a good chunk of money and we do have an updated version of the net spendometer for you. Let me get that ready to come up on screen. Here we go. Connor has done an updated version of the net spendometer. So here we go. There you go. So there's the Liverpool net spendometer at the minute. Currently at about £230 million spent after the signings of Georgi Mamardashvili, Frimpong, Pexi, Wirtz, Kirkes, and of course Hugo Ekitike. So that's where we're at. Now, if we brought in 300 million quid, then as you can see from that list there, we'd be up into, well, be up into the positives, wouldn't we? Now, I know some of the players have already been included in the sales there, but me and Connor worked this out earlier on. We reckon we're pretty much at break-even point if the names on my list get sold. And that's why we're still able to look at the likes of Isak. That's why we're still able to look at the likes of RODRYGO and a centre-back or two. It is going to be potentially the greatest transfer window, I would say, of any football club in the history of football transfers. That is how astounding this could be. So that's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. Now we'll go over to you guys and see what you think. And of course, then we'll run through some of the stories as well. Who will be signing next? It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one. And the answer is I don't really know who Liverpool are going to sign next. We think it'll come down to 4 potential options. Isak, Gordon, RODRYGO, and maybe Malik Fofana. Now, the situation is interesting because I don't know whether we're going to move for RODRYGO or we're going to hold put and try to get, Alexander Isak. I don't know what to say about that, but it's possible financially, so let's wait and see what happens. I guess the big question I would have for you guys is, right now, moving on Darwin, obviously losing Diogo for a different reason, and selling Luis Diaz, I think Liverpool need a minimum of 2 new attackers. Ekitike can be one of them, but I still think we need one more. And the question I'd like to ask now is, if Federico leaves, what do you think happens? Do you think Liverpool bring in another option? Because we would be leaving ourselves a body or two short, in my humble opinion. Gareth Williams said, if we buy Isak and sell Canade, would you agree that contracts are simply limited, compensation vehicles, and worthless in reality? I don't know, mate. I don't know, Gareth. I mean, look, I get that contracts are... If a player wants to get out of a contract, mate, they'll find a way, usually. And you don't want to keep an unhappy player at a club either. So you can see this trend now to clubs looking to get players tied down to longer deals. But also, will players want to sign them? Because what's a good wage now might not be a good wage in 5 years, 6 years. So it's kind of a double-edged sword to some extent. Joe said, Chiesa not in the squad for Asia. Nope, he's not. And there's 2 different answers as to why. So the travelling squad for the Reds trip over to take on AC Milan and Yokohama Marinos is Alisson, Gomez, Endo, Van Dijk, Canade, Diaz, Szoboszlai, Nunez, McAllister, Salah, Jones, Gakpo, Elliott, Chimikas, Robertson, Gravenberch, Doak, Woodman, Mamardashvili, Kirkes, Wirtz, Frimpong, Pexi, Rio, Mishore, Morton, Bradley, Stevenson, and Leone. But yes, one big omission from that travelling squad is, of course, the no Chiesa in there. And there's a couple of different reports on it. Fabrizio Romano said Federico Chiesa has been left out of Liverpool's pre-season tour squad as he's expected to depart the club this summer, whereas James Pearce went a different route and said that he needs a tailored individual training program. I know what I believe, and it's that he's going to be sold. And again, I say that as a Liverpool fan who would love Chiesa to get an opportunity, but it's just always felt like he was probably going to leave this summer if an offer comes in. Liquid said, I see Hugo as a Jota replacement. It's so tough because it's still raw, isn't it, to talk about Diogo. But I get where you're coming from, mate, and that's why I'm not ruling out Isak as a possibility here. Because we've brought in one forward and we've lost one forward. We're going to lose another forward and we're probably going to lose another forward. So is 2 enough? I would say 2 is enough if we don't lose Chiesa. Because I can see Rio. I can see a world where maybe Rio comes in and operates off the left as a backup to Gakpo. And then if you were to bring in, let's say, Isak, then you've got 2 options through the centre and Ekitike, who can also operate in either a left-sided role or as a second striker. I don't know where we go with it. I don't know if we end up looking at Rodrygo. I don't know if we end up going back to Isak, or I don't know if we end up looking at Gordon, Malik, Fofana. But the math don't math with regards to the bodies up top, and we're going to need to bring in a few more. And then, of course, we'll address the centre-back situation. And my belief is still that Liverpool are waiting to see what happens with Ibrahima Konate. Right, I want to say a little shout-out to Newcastle fans, if I may. Start off with my friend, the Irish guy. I see we featured in his video earlier on. Absolute legend as always, mate. Appreciate his insights on it. And I want to reiterate this. I have nothing but respect for Newcastle fans. But you may be happy, Geordies. I've been offered a ticket to go up to St. James's Park. So I might go up there on a bit of a diplomatic mission. I know Newcastle fans really, they want to come up and give the big man a hug. And that's okay. If you see me up and around St. James's Park, feel free to come up, say hello, take a photo or whatever. It's probably going to be a big occasion, to be fair, me arriving up at St. James's Park. So, I'll be there and available to everybody. So feel free to come up and, say hi. You're welcome. Right, ladies and gents, let's move on. Adam said, we know he will be sold, but do you think there's a chance Nunez can play himself back into the manager's plans this pre-season if he plays well enough? You can never say never in football. I've been around football long enough now to see things that I never thought possible happen. But I'd be really, 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 really surprised at this point. For me, it comes down to when you see the club letting players talk. Like DIAZ has been allowed to talk to Barca, Al Nassr, Bayern. We know that Darwin's been allowed to talk to Napoli. We know that he will be allowed to talk to AC Milan. And we know that he'll be allowed to talk to Al Hilal. I think that tells us what we need to know. So with Darwin, it's going to come down to the money. And if we get the money for him, he'll be moved on. If we don't, who knows? But I still firmly believe that Darwin will be sold. And again, pre-season means nothing when it comes to scoring goals and that. Pre-season's about fitness, about making sure you're up on tactics, and about getting ready for the season ahead. But I don't count pre-season results as something to be concerned about or overly happy about, and I certainly don't count goals that players score in pre-season as a reason to suddenly feel like they're back. Now, I watched the highlights from the Stoke game earlier on, and sharp finishes from Darwin. I especially enjoyed the second goal. But I was more looking at Florian Wirtz, to be honest with you, operating in that space behind. Watching the movement from Mohamed Salah, Szoboszlai and young Rio on the left as well. But again, you can't just ignore that Darwin has scored a hat-trick in the first half against the Stoke team today and scored one against Preston as well. But either way, I just don't see it. I really don't. Dale said, take that Trent picture down. What Trent picture? I don't know what you're talking about, mate. I've no idea what you're talking about with a Trent picture. I don't believe I have a Trent picture on the screen anywhere in your view. So we'll move on. Nunez would have to play like Messi to have any chance of staying, said Mark. Most likely, lads, Chiesa off, Diaz off, Darwin off. Yeah, that's the way it's looking. That's the way it's looking. But for what it's worth, I know it's sad to talk about these guys leaving, but let's talk about the excitement of what's possible, because there's been a fair amount of reports today linking us to various players. And Rodrigo, well, there's a report that said the interest in Rodrigo is genuine. Team Talk go on to say if Arne Slot does make a push for the Brazilian, it will likely set the club back around 78 to 80 million pound plus add-ons. And DIAZ has informed Liverpool of his desire to leave, and they say a guaranteed fee of 65 million would open up the sale. I think Liverpool will look for a bit more for DIAZ. I think the number we're looking for is closer to 80, but let's wait and see. Get French Football News have said Liverpool is likely to replace Luis Diaz with Real Madrid winger Rodrigo if the Colombian international leaves, according to L'Equipe. So what do you think happens with this one? If Liverpool, but Ekitike is in the bag now, we've still got to go through some of the formalities, but barring a calamity here, Ekitike is coming in. So we've got a central striker in theory sorted out. But where I'm struggling is, do Liverpool look to bring in a left-sided player if Diaz goes, or do they continue the push to try to prize Alexander Isak away from Newcastle? I don't know is the answer, but I know I'm fascinated by it, and I've never ever felt so optimistic in a transfer window in my life as I'm seeing with Liverpool right now. Do you think Rio will play Premier League minutes this season? Yes, I do. I get the feeling that he'll be kept around because he's impressing and because I think Arne, like I've said before, I'm guessing this, but I feel like Arne would want to be the one that molds him and works with him. And again, think of the level of training and stuff that he has, working with the likes of Mohamed Salah and the Liverpool forwards. You can't buy that. So I would say he'll stay around. 66 frame photo in your living room wall. Are you talking about the image from earlier on that was old that I put up, mate? Because the Trent picture, don't worry about that. That's replaced. What source is there for Chiesa being injured? None. It's James Pearce towing the company line. He's not injured. He fucking played and scored in the game earlier on. That's just James Pearce towing the company line and trying to convince the world of something that nobody believes. With all due respect to James Pearce, I very much fall down on the side of Romano on this one and thinking that it's because he wants to move away. And I get it. I've said it all the way through. We would have all liked Federico to stay, but in a World Cup year, with a new Italian manager, he's going to want to play. Darren, how are we, mate? Said, what percentage, Craig, do you reckon on us signing Isak? Hope you're well. It's so difficult to say because I really don't know, but it's not impossible. And what really gets me on this one is Newcastle fans just trying to console themselves by saying, oh, Liverpool still think they can get Isak. Well, yeah, look at it objectively. You're Isak right now, and you're looking around and going, right, we've gotten to the Champions League. What have the club done? They brought in Anthony Elanga. Is that going to satisfy Isak? Is that going to satisfy his ambitions to win stuff, to play at the very, very highest level and challenge? It's not. And you don't even have to take this idiot of an Irishman's waffle. Let's look at what the journalists are saying around this. And let's have a little look at Mark Ogden. So Mark Ogden, ESPN senior journalist, has been speaking about the situation and basically made it pretty clear that Isak ain't going to be satisfied with life so far. Let's just take you through what he said. 1 second. This one. So Mark Ogden said, Liverpool really want Alexander Isak. There's still 6 weeks until the window closes, and it would be surprising if Isak is not tempted by Liverpool. He went on to say, I can't see Isak just saying, no problem, I'll stay at Newcastle. We've only signed one player, but fine, I'll stay. I don't want to go to Liverpool. It doesn't stack up like that. And I think he's right. Now, again, I'm not saying it's happening, but I'm saying it's definitely not happening. Any news on Dan's? Was hoping he'd make the Asia list. Again, it would have to be getting back to full fitness, and maybe he's on a Taylor program at the minute. I really don't know exactly where Jayden Danns is at. But if I remember correctly, he's not on that list I put out a while ago. Let me just fly through it again. Alisson, Gomez, Endo, Van Dijk, Canade, Diaz, Szoboszlai, Nunez, McAllister, Salah, Jones, Gakpo, Elliott, Chimikas, Robbo, Gravenberg, Doak, Woodman, Mamberdice, Freely, Kirkes, Verts, Frimpong, Peck, Roja, Michour, Morton, Bradley, Stevenson, Ione. Yeah, he's not on that list, so I can only assume he's going to work on an individual Taylor program to get himself fit, because obviously that's the main focus for him right now, is being ready to either play with Liverpool this season or to go out on loan and get some proper minutes. Deutscher, Copite, how are we, dude? Said, hi Craig, great show as always. I send a message via another platform if you guys, for any chances you can respond. I, again, don't cover on other platforms, mate. I don't run our X account. I don't run our Instagram account. I don't run our TikTok account. This is the only place, or Discord, you're going to catch me, really. So I will ask one of the other mods if you can tell me what platform it is to pass it on to me. But at the moment, mate, I don't look at any of them, to be fair, because, you know, I get enough abuse as it is in life without opening myself up to more of it. But if it's important, I can certainly ask the lads to forward it on. Right, let's start a poll tonight. And I want to start off by asking, I want to ask how many forwards you think we're going to try to bring in. So let's go. 1 second. So how do I phrase this? If Chiesa is going. If Chiesa and Diaz. Actually, I'm going to throw Darwin in there. If Chiesa, Darwin and Diaz go. How many forwards do we need? Right, cool. So we'll start off with 2 more. And again, I'm going to, I'll put a caveat in here. Assume Ekitike is here. Yeah, there we go. That makes it easier. Right, so 2 more. 3 more. 1 more. More than 3. Right, so if Chiesa, Darwin and Diaz go, how many more forwards do Liverpool need, assuming Ekitike is already here? 2 more, 3 more, 1 more, or more than 3? Very interested to see how you vote on this one, because for what it's worth, if all the names on that list go, Chiesa, Darwin and Diaz, I'm going to say 2 more after Ekitike. If Chiesa stayed around, I would say 1 more would suffice if Rio's going to be given opportunities. But I'd be intrigued to see whether it's a winger or whether it's another utility attacker, shall we say, or somebody whose name rhymes with Schmalishmander Schmishek. Or Schmishak, even. Hey Craig, hope you're doing well. Was it only me that thinks there's a small details which said that Isak's happening? I think there's more than small details, Mohammed John, that could make you think that Isak's possible. Look at what happened yesterday, where you had Eddie Howe saying one thing and Newcastle briefing another thing. I don't know how it ends. Like I've said, I'd love Isak, and I think Liverpool aren't giving up on Isak, even after the signing of Ekitike. We've run through why I think it's possible, and I'll run through Mo Chatra's thread in a while, which is on X, and I absolutely urge you to go and have a read of it. If you can, just search Mo Chatra, Chatra, and look at Mo's work on there. But I think, like I said yesterday, Mohammed John, I feel a little bit more confident in the last 2 days than I've probably ever felt about the possibility of signing Isak. And that confidence hasn't waned since we've signed Ekitike, or since we've agreed to sign Hugo Ekitike. I can see a world where Arne thinks both of them coming in. But I'm also absolutely over the moon if we end up bringing in Rodrigo. The DIAZ situation's always felt to me like he wanted to go. I've always told you I'm more than happy for DIAZ to stay or not, because I think he's a good footballer. But if he wants to go, fair enough, get the money you can from him, move him on. But can you imagine if we end with a front four that's something like Wirtz in behind, Ekitike central, Salah right, and somebody like, let's say, Rodrigo left. And then you've got Cody Gakpo as an option, you've got Rio as an option. Tell me that isn't exciting. Like, that is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And it's possible. That's the thing. It's all very, very possible. And the situation with Isak, like I mentioned, when I said to Newcastle fans, I think Newcastle should sell us Isak, I wasn't just saying it to be a shithouse. I tried to explain my reasoning in that it would stop what's happening. They could have had a chance to get Ekitike. Now, I don't know if Ekitike would have gone to Newcastle or not, but they would have had a far better chance of it if they had have agreed to sell us Isak. Now they're in a world where they're probably going to lose Trafford to Manchester City. They've already lost Ekitike to us. They've already lost out on the likes of Mbomo and Cunha, João Pedro. And it's because they don't have the financial wiggle room because of PSR. Not because their owners don't want to spend, not because they wouldn't be able to spend that money, but they're trying to stay within the rules. And that would have given them the wiggle room to do it. So at what point do Newcastle stop digging their heels in? I don't know the answer to it. I'm just posing it as a question because genuinely I feel like they're hamstringing themselves somewhat by not taking a huge amount of money for a player like Isak. And you can see it in the frustration of some of their fans. Even in the Irish guy video we mentioned earlier on, he rightly talked about Newcastle and Ekitike going back a long time, all the way from when he was at Rome. They were talking about signing him. And now they've just lost out on him. And we would have moved on if we had gotten Isak. So I told what was going to happen, but they just didn't want to hear it. And they thought they'd just go straight to abuse. Sorry. But this is where we're at as a squad. Rodrygo will be cover for Salah. He won't, William, because he wants to play on the left, mate. Look, I'm not saying there isn't a world, William, where Rodrygo can go out and operate on the right-hand side. But one of the things he's looking to do, if he gets a move, is to play in his favourite position, which is in off the left. And if we were to sell Luis Diaz, at least it opens up the possibility where, yes, it's him and Gakpo fighting it out. And again, just like I said about Cody Gakpo and Luis Diaz, the idea of Rodrygo and Cody Gakpo, phenomenal options for us on the left and versatile as well. Right. How does Hugo differ from Darwin? Hope it works out. Don't know. Mate, I've been really honest with everybody about Hugo Ekitike and say I don't know all that much about him. Obviously, like everybody else, I've watched loads of highlight videos over the last few days and, highlight videos could make even me look good. But I trust the judgment of the club. And I get maybe some fans feel we've overpaid for what he's achieved so far in his career. But people whose opinion that I actually value, not saying I don't value everyone's opinion, but people who have a history of getting things right, their voices on Ekitike feel like he is a very, very big talent. Might not be the finished article, I think that's fair to say, but he does a lot. But is he an absolute number 9? Is he a poacher? Maybe not. And that's what I keep coming back to. I don't know where Arne's head's at with this. Do we want somebody to play a Bobby Firmino-esque style of number 9? Or do we want somebody to be a poacher who goes in there and plays in behind and, does his work in the 6-yard box? Don't know the answer to it, but it's becoming a bit more clear that we aren't finished. We aren't finished in this window, and this feels insane to say as a Liverpool fan, but there is a world where we could spend £500 million this summer. Now, it won't be net, but there's a world we could spend £500 million and not be in any problem. When do you think Hugo will come into the team? Difficult to know whether he'll join up, Eddie, with the lads over in either Hong Kong or Japan. Now, we've a fair time before our first game over there. You know, the lads travelled over tonight with Japan Air, but we don't play till next weekend, so quite a while yet. So maybe, if I'm not mistaken as well, Frankfurt were to head off on a pre-season tour of America, and I'd be very surprised if he's not over having his medical very, very soon, maybe the next day or two, and then perhaps follows the lads out. Canade out and Branthwaite in. Well, I'd love Branthwaite, mate. I really would. Don't think it's possible because he signed a new deal at Everton. But there was one name that was doing the rounds today that was an interesting one. So, Caught Offside wrote a piece talking about Spurs being interested in signing Ilya Zabarni, or Zabarni, excuse me, from Bournemouth. Now, I know Paris Saint-Germain tried to sign him earlier on in the summer and had a pretty big offer rejected. But this piece here from Caught Offside suggested that Liverpool see him as a potential Ibrahima Konate replacement. So, if we lose Konate, you've got the option of Gay, you've got the option of the likes of Collins, you've got maybe this guy, although I don't know how receptive Bournemouth would be to us coming back in. Nor do I think Liverpool would match the type of fee that PSG offered, which I think was like 60-something million, if I'm not mistaken. And Real Madrid have asked Liverpool for the number for this summer for Konate. Liverpool's answer is probably going to be about 40 million, but I don't know. I don't feel like Liverpool have given up on Konate extending just yet. Donna and Shane Bain said, I'd say 2 strikers and Gay and I'd be well happy. So for me, Donna, if we lost everybody on the list there that I've posed, I would say we need 2 more after Hugo and 1 centre-back now, 2 if Konate goes. But after that, I mean, wow, what a window. You know, to think that we could improve the squad in the way we have and the way we might be with a net spend of about 150 or 160 million is insane. But like I said, I ran through the numbers earlier on and I wasn't excessive in the potential sale figures for our players, and it adds up to over 300 million. And we haven't really weakened ourselves with that at all. Dragos said, what a time to be alive as a Liverpool fan. Mate, I'm here with you and it feels insane. Insane. Every day now I'm getting up excited. Every day I don't want to sleep. I want to keep reading. I want to keep streaming. I want to keep talking. You know, you probably asked why I went a bit earlier tonight. Honestly, because I want a 2-hour stream. That's the answer. I couldn't wait for 8:45. I wanted to be on here with you guys earlier because I want to talk footy. I want to talk Liverpool and I want to share all of our excitement. Just Jack, how are we, dude? Said, am I alone in thinking we don't want Gakpo starting? I would say that's a little bit unfair. I think Cody Gakpo progressed this season for me. I think he offers us something a bit different. He chips in with some really important goals, and I've no doubt that Arna really believes in him. But it's about giving ourselves options. And right now, outside of Ekitike coming in, Salah staying, and Gakpo, every other forward player at the club's future is in doubt. So, no, I think Cody's good. And I think the manager backs him. And I think there's more to come from Cody Gakpo for what it's worth, mate. But competition's a good thing. You know, at a top club like Liverpool, you want to have 2 players in every position. And we had it last year. The minutes were mixed between Gakpo and DIAZ. And I think they both did well. David, lovely to see you as always, sir. Thank you for being in with us, my man. Much love to you. Appreciate you. And again, you always have a kind word to say for the community, mate. Thank you. Right, let's drop in. Valid. So, Craig, if we don't get Isak, how about Rodrigo? Because he's 90% leaving Madrid. Dude, absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. Like I said, there is a world where we could end this transfer window and hypothetically have a front 4 of Wirtz, Rodrygo, Ekitike and Salah, with Gakpo as an option, with Rio as an option. It's absolutely possible, dude. Dream. Believe. Anything in this window, the way we're moving and with the ambition we're showing. Like, think of it a different way. If you're Rodrygo and you do decide that you want to leave Madrid and DIAZ does leave Liverpool, Tell me that there's a better option from anywhere in world football than moving to Liverpool. A club that have a long-standing interest in him, a club that tried to sign him before he went to Madrid, and a club that are on the up and up. It's it feels nuts though, doesn't it, dude? To say this like out loud, it feels insane. Because as I said, if I said to you a year ago, Liverpool were going to spend 116 million on Florian Wirtz, I'd have thought I was mad. But it happened. And we didn't just stop there. Then we went out and dropped money on a new forward. We're going to drop more money on a centre-back or two. We've brought in Frimpong. And by the way, have you seen the speed of him? Oh my days. Him going down that right side is ridiculous. It's incredible. It just feels surreal. And whatever superlative or whatever phraseology I use to try to describe this window, I feel like I'm still underselling it because it's insanity. When I've got mates from other clubs messaging me going, what the fuck is going on at Liverpool? What is happening? They're all shocked. Absolutely shocked. It's crazy. And I'm talking about non-Liverpool fans here. United fans, Chelsea fans, messaging me going, what's happening? Has FSG lost the plot? What's going on? It's great. Long may it continue. And look, I guess the big question is going to be, do we expect this spend to dull down Liverpool spending in future years a bit? Maybe. But I tell you what, we aren't half front loading for the future. Right, so we asked, if Chiesa, Darwin and Lucho go, how many forwards do we need? Assume Ekitike is here. And so far, I think I can call it, with 2,300 votes, 65% of you guys and girls said that it's two more that we need. And thank you to everyone who took part. If you could bear with me for a moment, I'd like to read you through Mo Chatra's thread on the finances, because you may remember Mo being on the channel in the past. Mo is a regular contributor with Anfield Index. Shout out to our friends at Anfield Index. And again, I would urge you to go and have a read of this for yourself from Mo. I'm not trying to pinch his work or anything, but I do think it's very important that I bring it up on the screen to explain how this is all possible. And again, Mo, as a background in finance, is an expert, and I think his views are very much worth listening to. And again, shout out to our friends at Anfield Index. Right, so this is what Mo Chatra has had to say. Liverpool's summer of madness is delighting its fans in equal proportion to upsetting rival supporters. Once the Ekitike deal is concluded, transfer fee outlay will hit 260 million plus. With further expensive income is expected, this thread explains how the club is financing it. The first thing to note is that Liverpool, the club, is not benefiting from owner investment through the issue of new shares, sale of assets of themselves, or dubious inflation of sponsorship deals involving related parties. This is being achieved through an evolving, self-sustaining model. 1 second. Is it that one? Yeah, this one. In a nutshell, an outlay that could approach £500 million should further rumour deals materialise is achievable through a modest spending over recent years, record expected sales in the transfer window, as well as record revenues estimated at £700 million for 24-25 and £750 million for 25-26. Mo goes on to say the following image shows signings that have joined the club. One, Ekitike, who should be confirmed imminently, as well as 3 players the club appears to be pursuing with laser-focused intent: Isak, RODRYGO and Mark Gay. All fees exclude add-ons and assume in most cases that the fees will be paid in 3 instalments, except Wirtz's fee, which is said to be split over 5 annual payments, and the price for Pexi, which is due to its low value. Fees for Isak, RODRYGO and Gay are estimates. Now, he says on this list, he goes through the players mentioned in it, and he said Alexander Isak, transfer fee, he goes, say, 120 for argument's sake. Summer instalment, 40 million. Wirtz, 100 million. Summer instalment, 20 million. Ekitike, just under 70 million. Instalment, 23 million. RODRYGO, 70 million. Instalment, 23 million. Milos Kerkez, 35 million, installment 11.7. Mark Gay, 35 million, installment 11.7. Frimpong, 29.6, installment 9.9, Mamardashvili 25 million, installment 8.3, and Pexi 1.5, and we paid it all up front. So basically, the amount of outlay for Liverpool this summer has been about 150 million in payments, in installments that Liverpool have had to pay out. The installment figures should not be confused with amortisation, where the cost of a transfer is spread equally over the duration of a contract. More on that later. The £149 million represents payments that will have to be made or that have already been made this summer. In addition to these payments, the club also need to spend significant sums to cover agents' fees. For most new signings, larger agencies are not involved. Nonetheless, the club has a track record of paying very large agent fees, so my estimate, Mo's estimate, will be about 60 million. The club also had to make payments towards deals from previous seasons. Final payments for Gravenberch, Endo, Chiesa would have totaled approximately 20 million. McAllister and Szoboszlai's fees were paid in a single instalment in the summer of 2023 through the use of a credit facility. The credit facility, in simple terms, is a loan mechanism that allows a borrower to withdraw funds when they're needed. The club's credit facility was renewed in September 2024, making total funds available of 350 million on the 31st of May 2024. 116 million of that had already been used. Goes on to say, assuming all the deals on my earlier graphic materialise and payments need to be made towards previous deals, this summer's deals, reducing the borrowing for the McAllister and Szoboszlai signings, the outlay this summer could be in the region of £260 million. That is broken down as summer 2025 deals installments 149 million, previous arrival installments 20 million, agents fees 60 million, and reducing the credit facility for McAllister and Szoboszlai 31 million. Clearly a very significant commitment, however. Liverpool is all set to smash its record for player sales this summer. The following graphic shows sales that have already been completed, as well as other sales that are expected to be concluded by the 1st of September transfer deadline. And those players, like I've ran through, DIAZ, Darwin, Elliott, Kwanzaa, Bajcetic, Doak, Kelleher, Robbo. I would say Costas, but he said Robbo. And he runs through the list basically and shows the money that we could bring in. He then said, in addition to benefiting from proceeds from sales of players this summer, the club will also receive instalment payments for players sold over the last few seasons. These payments could amount to 30 million quid. Payments due this summer for summer 2025 sales, as well as departures from previous seasons, could therefore amount to approximately 125 million. This remaining amount would need to be funded from net cash after operating activities. For 25-26, I estimate the club should generate revenue of £750 million. I estimate the wage bill will hit £430 million this season, whilst other operating expenses will total £160 million. This will leave net cash after operating activities at £160 million, which should be ample to cover the £135 million needed to facilitate the remaining deals and anticipated fees the club is working on. The credit facility can cash flow this if immediate cash isn't available. Like I've said, definitely worth going and having a look at it for yourself, to soak it in, take in more detail, look at the charts. Mo Chatra is the gentleman's name, M-O, new word, C-H-A-T-R-A, and again, shout out to our friends at Anfield Index. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. That is, in a nutshell, in very exquisite detail from Mo, how all of this is possible. And like I've said, my own thought process is that we could bring in close to £300 million in sales this summer. Enjoy it. Soak it in. It is fucking glorious. Excuse my language. Right, let's keep going. Loads more comments to get through. Mohammed said, so much is speculated about the forwards. I wish that we could get some defensive options also. We will. I've tried, mate, to explain this many times. Mark Gay is on ice at the minute, waiting to see what happens. To the best of my understanding, and again, this is me just trying to piece things together, it feels like we haven't given up on signing Ibu and trying to get him to sign a new deal. And only when the club know for certain that that has been ruled out, do I think we make the play. And at that point, the play would be probably Gay and a young centre-back. Right now, Liverpool hope to convince Canade to stay, and then they will go get the young centre-back maybe Leone, maybe Hato, maybe somebody we haven't spoken about. But if there's one thing I'd like you to take from this, the club know that the club need to get a centre-back, and we won't leave ourselves short. It's just busy, as you can see. And some things, like the Ekitike deal, became a bit more time-sensitive because Newcastle were sniffing around as well. So the club are just trying to pick things off as best as they can. But I think by the end of this window, we'll all be sitting here and nodding along and thinking, okay, that was pretty damn good. But I get it. I totally do appreciate where you're coming from. Joe McDougall, how are we, Joe? Still hurts to say it, but Ekitike is Darwin's replacement. Jota's chair is still empty. I know, mate. And that's why I'm trying to figure out what way we go with the other attackers. So if Chiesa's moving on, the consensus is we need two. And I don't know if those two are going to be one winger, another centre forward, one winger, a versatile forward. But I feel like it'll be from the list of Rodrigo, Fofana, Gordon, Isak. That's my best guess at the way things will pan out. Two of those four will probably come in. One of those four if Chiesa doesn't go. But that's where I think we're at. And honestly, I know we'll all have our own preferences. Mine, for what it's worth, would be Isak, Rodrigo, Gordon, Fofana. That would be my list of preferences. But one thing that struck me today watching the highlights of that Stoke game was the sheer footballing cleverness on display. The movement, the touches, the speed. I know it was only against Stoke and I know it's in pre-season, but the brain of Wirtz was a joy to watch. The movement of Mohamed Salah and Szoboszlai on the right was genius. Jones was looking good. Darwin was getting into good positions. Rio didn't look again like he was out of place. Trainioni played a wonderful ball across as well. It's just so heartwarming and uplifting to see what's possible. These guys look fucking incredible. I'm so excited. I want to go to sleep now and wake up for the new season. It's ridiculous. I can't wait. Daza said, surely you agree we need a backup for Grav. Only if the manager decides that it isn't going to be McConnell or Bajcetic. If the manager wants to go one of them, I understand it. If he doesn't, I definitely understand your point as well. And yes, we do. We got away last season, I think. You can make an argument that Maka can drop in and play the role, Endo can play the role, but I still say we'd have to play the role differently. So I totally get where you're coming from, Daza. But I just don't know what Arne thinks of Bajcetic and McConnell yet. If he wants to give one of them a run as the option, great. I feel like that could be a late piece of business in the window either way. Gary said, Chiesa, I think, takes Jota's spot. Endo covers number 6, backup. Oh, I want Rodrigo. Well, Romano tonight reported Chiesa isn't travelling with Reds over to Hong Kong and Japan. That's confirmed. The reasons why, well, they're up for debate depending on what journalist you listen to. Romano said Federico Chiesa has been left out of Liverpool's pre-season tour as he's expected to depart the club this summer. So I think that's probably the case. James Pearce said they used to work on fitness issues, whatever, but I'm not buying that. I think Chiesa just looking to get a move. And I'd love him to stay, and I'm sure you'd love him to stay, but it's not looking likely. Right, let's get back into the chat. Can't wait to watch the Milan game now, said Stephanie Dupreez. Dom could be a DM fill-in. Well, he played at right back today for some of that game. I remember, I don't know if it was one of the lads at the newspaper I shall not mention, or if it was somebody else, but there was talk he played at right back today. So the World Cup's coming in 2026. Do you think players will give their all or hold back for fitness and injuries? I don't know. You know, everybody takes pride in playing for the country. And going to a World Cup with your country, I'm sure, is an absolutely amazing experience. But this is why I talked about player welfare with the Club World Cup and stuff. We're fortunate that we weren't in that tournament this summer, because Chelsea in particular are going to have a very exhausted squad by the end of the season, but they've reintroduced Champions League football, which means that they won't be able to really make the changes that they made in the Europa Conference League. And I think it'll impact some of these clubs. So I think there's a real chance for Liverpool here in Europe, in particular this season. Ryan, how are we, dude? Said drop Szoboszlai or Gakpo for Wirtz. Well, I see Wirtz operating in the 10, so most likely going to be Szoboszlai. But again, I would say don't get caught up in just thinking starting 11s or thinking best 11s, because games change, positions change, tactics change. There could be a world where we go 4-3-3. There could be a world where we go 4-3-2-1. There could be a world where we go 4-2-2-2. And the whole point of what we're doing this summer is to build out all of those options for Arne, to give him tactical flexibility without weakening the starting 11 or the 11 on the pitch. And it is glorious to behold. But the players have to play really well to be even chosen for the FIFA World Cup. It's not like they can just do nothing and get chosen unless you're Messi or something. Yeah, that's true as well. And that's why I was speaking about Canade previously. That was probably one of Liverpool's aces up their sleeve, if they have any in the Canade situation, was he's already kind of touch and go with the starting 11 for Didier Deschamps and the World Cup squad. So if Liverpool are looking to freeze him out if he wouldn't move on, or if he won't sign the new deal, that's the one card I think they can play. What about Gakpo for a striker? Again, Edo, possible. Like, if you look at some of the players in our team, you'll talk about flexibility and ability to play in 2 or 3 different positions, and Cody can do that. Cody can play as a winger. Cody can play as a striker. I dare say he could probably play in the hole in behind as well. But again, that's to his credit. And again, these are all options that Arne will have at his disposal. Right, let's keep going. So many more comments to get through. Where are we? This one. How many wallets did John find? It would be lovely to hear from him or somebody in FSG why the mindset shifted this summer. I would be fascinated to know that. You know, I had a stab at this myself to try and guess it, and the best guess I can come up with is a combination of being frugal in previous windows, maybe being a little bit pleasantly surprised by Arne winning the league, and then feeling like there's a weakness from Manchester City. And I think that's probably a big part of this. And I'm not saying there's a weakness for Manchester City necessarily even for just this season. But I mean, 2 years of Guardiola max and he's probably gone. And then City have massive shoes to fill. And I mean massive shoes, because a big part of the draw of City then goes out the door if Guardiola leaves. And that's before we talk about the replacements for some of the big players that have left. You know, De Bruyne is leaving. Have they really replaced him with Cherky? I don't think he's going to be a patch on Kevin De Bruyne. So I think that's probably some of the reason why FSG feel like they've done the infrastructure projects, they've cut their cloth accordingly in other transfer windows, and now they must feel like it's the time to really push on. What's this one? Oh, okay. So, bit of breaking news around Isak's future. So, Magpie Media, credit them for this, said breaking, Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak's agent speaking to Saudi Arabian newspaper RODRYGO, I believe was the name of it, said, "We are studying and analysing our options, and we may be close to finalising the next step for the player without revealing any details of a transfer." Thoughts? Again, there's nothing to say it might not be Al Hilal, by the way, but that's not he's staying put. Don't bother wasting our time talking about a move, is it? nor is Newcastle putting a price on his head. That's not saying he's not for sale. I've said this to you all the way through. If someone's not for sale, you say he's not for sale. You don't say he's not for sale unless the numbers hit. And then you don't say that he's not playing because he's on a personal fitness thing, and then only for your manager to come out an hour later and say, well, no, I chose not to put him in the squad because I don't think his head's in the right place. So let's wait and see. I would struggle to see a world where Isak wants to move to Al Hilal. I'm sure financially it would be otherworldly what he could earn. But can he fulfill his ambition? No, he can't there. So let's wait and see. This one. Benjamin said, I think you have big up the club for keeping a good feeling after the tragedy. We've very left heavy at the minute. Hugo plays off the left. We're very left heavy at the minute. Hugo plays off the left. I'm worried about Salah cover. Understand where you're coming from. We've got Frimpong, Szoboszlai as possible options on the right. Again, I know we're all fascinated with wingers being inverted, but there's nothing to say Gakpo couldn't shift to the right. There's nothing to say Rodrigo couldn't shift to the right to play where he played for Madrid if he comes in. Again, don't worry, it's in hand, but these are good headaches to have, Benjamin, aren't they? These are good headaches to have. Scouts Will, how are we, my friend? Said, don't apologise for the language, mate. We're all adults here. It won't let me say it, but properly, but feck it. Yeah, sorry, man. Look, I love swearing, but I know sometimes people get a bit worked up if I over swear. But I don't know any other way to describe how I'm feeling without throwing swear words in, because it's red panty night. It really is. Terry Kildare, how are we, Terry? Said, if Klopp is the new Shankly building the foundations, will Sloppy the next Paisley taking us on in domination? Well, you got to say it's a possibility, Terry, right? Do you know what it makes me smile, Terry? Do you remember when Jurgen was leaving and so many past players like Glenn Johnson and others came out to say, well, whoever comes in next is going to be what's the phrase I'm looking for? A lamb to the slaughter. That the next manager is going to fail and they're just going to be coming in after Jurgen Klopp. And I kept saying over and over again, from my research on Arne Slot, there's no way that's what he's coming in for. He wasn't coming in to be the fall guy. He was coming in because he knew Jurgen was leaving him a good squad, because he knew he had his own thoughts on what he could do to change a few things, and because it's a great job. And I never, ever, ever believed... Now, it didn't for 1 second, Terry, believe we were going to win the league. But, wow. Wow. What a time, man. What a time. Triller X said, surely Rodrigo has to be our next target. Certainly possible, dude. Certainly possible. It's how mad is it to say that? It's just casually talking about Rodrigo as a genuine option, you know? Just casually throwing it in there and saying, oh, yeah, that's possible. But it is. Where am I at? This one. ProStock78 said, hi, Craig. Thoughts on a Canade and Rodrigo swap? If all avenues are exhausted and there's no chance for Canade staying, you'd have to say it would certainly be an option, right? You'd have to say it's an option. Madrid want Canade, that's clear. Liverpool want Canade to stay, but ultimately that decision will come down to Canade. If he indicates to Liverpool that nothing Liverpool can say is going to change his mind, he wants to join Madrid, then Liverpool have to try facilitate that this summer. And Rodrigo as a part exchange, or even just to open up the channels of communications between the two clubs, certainly couldn't be a bad thing, right? So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm calm on it, because if Ibu stays, brilliant, like Ibu. If Ibu goes and Mark Gay comes in, I'm equally as calm, because I think Mark Gay is a fine defender. Bomb Ekitike. Oh, Yellow by Yellow. I don't know that song, so I'll have to take your word for it. And yeah, I was just thinking, it's very hard to rhyme Ekitike with anything, isn't it? Right, let's keep going with some comments. Good afternoon, Craig. Hope everything's well, said Snow. Oh, mate, living the dream, bro. Living the dream. Don't know what else to say, but just living the dream. It's what a time. What a time to be a Liverpool fan. And again, what a time for our channel as well. Absolutely flying. And on that, I have one more show on stage ever. And it's taking place 19th of October. And I promise you this is the last one I'm doing because I really struggle with stage fright. So if you want to come and see us for the last time, you can get your tickets with that QR code on the screen. Hot Water Comedy Club in Liverpool, which is our home when we come over to Liverpool on the 19th of October. Right, let's keep going. Craig, who would you play in Salah's position when he's at the AFCON? I don't know if I can answer that yet, my man, because instinctively I'm saying Frimpong off the top of my head. But if Rodrigo came in, there's nothing to say Rodrigo couldn't be on the right and Cody on the left. So I think we're going to have to wait to see what happens in the window before I give you a definitive answer. And by the way, anybody who's coming in late, don't worry. I'm still staying on till 10:30 because I couldn't wait till 8:15. There to 9 tonight. I wanted to come on early, so we jumped on at 8:30. This one, Chris said, Chiesa reminds me of the Kewell signing back in the day. I was so happy when we signed both for so cheap, but unfortunately both just didn't work. That's a brilliant analogy, Chris, and one that I echo, mate, and share with you. I've spoken about it on the channel before in the past, but I was in St. Vincent's Hospital in Dublin in the A&E when Kewell announced that he was coming to Liverpool. And I'll never ever forget it. And I thought to myself, that's it now. We've boxed off the left-hand side and we're gonna finally be ready. And it just didn't work out like that, did it? And like you, when I heard we were bringing in Chiesa, I kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit, but understood why we were rolling the dice. But yeah, it just hasn't worked out, unfortunately. Just came in. Who do you think is next to come in? I don't know how to guess, Sonny, because I don't know if Isak's possible. Like, even I refuse to acknowledge there's a world where you bring in Ekitike, Isak and Rodrigo. Surely to God, that's not possible. Right? Or is it? Who knows? Love your channel. Isak Rodrigo would be a dream. Oh, can you imagine it, Harley? Can you imagine that? Insanity. And by the way, don't worry about the centre-back situation. I know people keep saying centre-back, centre-back, centre-back. I get it. The club know. But again, it's going to be contingent on what happens with Canade. Canade stays, it'll be a young centre-back. If it's not, Liverpool will probably pivot to an experienced centre-back and then a young centre-back. Now, there is a world where you can argue and say, well, why not go out and get a young centre-back regardless? I get you on that one, but we won't leave ourselves short there. But yeah, can you imagine? Rodrigo and Isak on top of Ekitike. My God. Wow. Don't you think FSG spend the money to get into the Super League? Come on, it's FSG. There has to be a reason. Are you worried about it? So many new players. No, I'm not worried about it, Carl, because, like I mentioned, I can see how it's financially viable. Not as well as Mo Chatra can, talk about it, but like I said, just going through the list of players that I mentioned, and I'll run through it again for anybody who's late in. This is my list of potential sales and players who've already moved on. Kelleher, 17 or 18 million. Kwanzaa, I think it was somewhere between 35 and 38 million. Darwin will be 50 million. DIAZ, about 75 or 80 million. Elliott, 40 million if there's a buyback, so let's go with that. Morton, 15. Costas, 17. Dulk, 25. Trent, we got 10 million. Phillips, we got 3 million. And Chiesa, about 15 million. Now, if you add all those up, and this isn't even talking about Canade, by the way, 310 million. Even rounding it down to 280, if you think some of my numbers might be a bit lofty. It's possible. And if you bring in that amount of money, well, that pretty much covers what we've done already. So it's all possible. We'd only be getting into the net spend part now. So strap yourselves in, because this is going to be insane for the next 6 weeks. Martin Lawrence said, I think we could get Gay in anyway. Canade is already planning his free move to Madrid, and having Gay in forces Canade's hand in a World Cup year. But we wouldn't... How do I say this? You have to think about the pitch to Mark Gay as well. Because Mark Gay is going to want, in a World Cup year, his own guarantee of at least seniority in the selections for centre-back. And if you have a potential that Canade is going to be there, and Gomez is going to be there, and Virgil's going to be there, I don't know if you can sell the plan to Mark Gay in the same way. That's why I keep saying I think Canade is the key to all of the centre-back situation. This one from Itachi. So, good evening, Craig. News to Isak. Did you tell the numbers? So the Isak news is it the Magpie Media post that said breaking: Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak's agent speaking to Saudi Arabian newspaper Ariadia via KSA Mags said, "We are studying and analysing our options. We may be close to finalising the next step for the player without revealing the details of our transfer." So let's wait and see. Look, if Isak moves to Al Hilal as an argument right now, cool. Then Liverpool probably go get Rodrigo and maybe Malik Fofana, or Rodrigo and somebody else. But it's all possible. Everything's on the table right now. So let's ask the question that I feel like I ask every day. 1 second. So the age-old question: is Isak to Liverpool possible? I want to see every day. I want to take your temperature on this one and see how you're feeling. So let's wait and see. Ricky said Canade plus 50 million for Rodrigo. Probably a bit less, I would say. Some of the numbers, Ricky, I've seen thrown around for Rodrigo are about 70 to 75 million pound. I think Liverpool, being realistic, could probably get 35 for Canade. So I'd say 40, and Canade would be closer to the number. But either way, if Canade signals to the club he wants to go, it certainly would open up the conversation with Madrid. Sonder said DIAZ, Nunez, Chiesa going, Isak, Rodrigo in. Possible, dude. It's possible. Like I said, I know it sounds mad, and from the outside, if you're not a Liverpool fan, I'm sure it sounds even more ludicrous. But it's absolutely possible. That's where we're at. As good as all this is, that is where we're at. I'm choosing my words really carefully what I say here, but do I feel Isak moves from Newcastle this summer? I'm probably 70-30 yes. But I don't know where he moves to. Like, I don't know if there is some ridiculous Al Hilal offer coming his way that might just blow his mind and throw obscene amounts of money his way that will change the next 5 generations of his family. I haven't got a clue. But the whole situation to me doesn't feel like a player who's going to be there, at least in the longer term, because Newcastle are struggling to get him to extend, and they have PSR concerns. Not real problems, but if they want to build a squad out to give Eddie Howe the chance to not have a fall off in the league like they did last time they were in the Champions League, that's going to take some wiggle room. And that's why when Newcastle fans were shouting at me, calling me everything under the sun, I kept saying, you should take the money. You should take the money. Because you could have had Ekitike, or at least you could have had a run at Ekitike without us being there. But they didn't. And now you've got Eddie Howe not playing him. And, fans, even Newcastle fans now getting jittery about whether he goes or not. And the longer Newcastle dig their heels in, the more targets they probably miss out on. And they're against the clock. They've brought in one player, Elanga, this summer. And how many have they missed out on? 6, 7. And if they had more wiggle room financially, they could have probably moved on a few of these deals. That's my take on it. And again, I know Newcastle fans just think I was being an arrogant arsehole Liverpool fan, but it wasn't. I was trying to put myself in their position. And again, the hindsight of the Coutinho situation with us, I remember what that money did and how that money well invested kicked us on. Andrew Noblet said, always a pleasure watching the show, Craig. Remember the days of Lambert. Oh, God. I do. And do you know what, though? I wanted Ricky to do well because, he was a Liverpool fan. But they were crazy days, man. They were crazy days. I remember being in my back garden in one of the first houses I was in when Balotelli was coming in after we'd lost Suarez. And I wanted to dig a hole and bury myself in it at that point because I just thought, what's the fucking point? It was dark, dark days. And even just acknowledging Roy Hodgson could be the Liverpool manager just made me want to have the ground open up and swallow me. It would have to be a big hole, I get it. But yeah, it's so far removed from where we were to now. And I am genuinely extremely grateful as a Liverpool fan. I haven't always agreed with the methods that FSG have gone with, and I've been quite outspoken in criticism of them for lack of spending. But right now, I just feel like anything's possible. Anything. It's mad. Ryan said, can't believe what we're seeing this window. Think about last year and screaming FSG out. What a turnaround. Fair play FSG. I tip my hat. Same. Mate, look, I always said, if FSG start spending, you won't hear a pop from me about them. And they are. And how could I not be happy with that? It took them a while to get going, and it was fucking frustrating on occasion. But right now, they are playing a masterclass. There's no other word for it. Edwards, Hughes, FSG, everybody at Liverpool, the staff, the recruitment team, the analysts. It's insane. And what really boils piss about it with other people is they can't even say that we're doing it with owner money, or we're doing it with inflated sponsorship deals, or we're doing it with not within the rules. That's what really is driving everybody mad about this is they know that they can't even throw that at us. Yeah, they'll throw at us, you're now a club who spends a load of money. We've got to take that one on the chin, to be fair. But I'll gladly take that one on the chin to have the opportunity to go into next season with the squad we look like we're having. Scouts Will said, when is the Coutinho money running out, Craig? Asking for every rival fan. The jealous bar stewards. We invested it very wisely, didn't we? The Coutinho money. Like Connor's communion money, he still has it. And yeah. It's never going to run out, Will. Never. It's there forever, mate. That phrase of stay here and they'll build you a statue to Coutinho, go Barca and you'll just be another player. It's never rang truer. And what really got me about that window is we didn't even replace Coutinho in that window when he left. And that's what made me really, really angry. But like I said in many videos, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain stepped up massively there, and it was really unfortunate to have that ACL injury against Roma. Players should love to play for Liverpool. Canade would have signed by now. Might want to follow Trent away to Madrid. Still angry with Trent. Just get gay. So I agree with you. Like, as a Liverpool fan, Vimal, and even trying to play devil's advocate here, what is so special about Madrid in this particular moment versus us? So yes, they've got a shiny stadium, the Santiago Bernabeu. And yes, I'm sure lifestyle in Madrid and the weather's better. But if you look at their dressing room and our dressing room, I would dare to say our dressing room is a better group. And what I mean by that is there's no egos really floating around our dressing room, whereas Alonso's gone straight in there to a divided fan base who are angry with Mbappe, who are unsure about Trent, and Bellingham, who's now out with a shoulder injury till October, and, fans are a bit critical of him. They've got a manager who hasn't fully settled on a formation yet. And I just don't see it. I think Liverpool and Paris Saint-Germain are probably the two most exciting clubs to be involved with at this moment in world football. So, for whatever reason, some players, and Canada could be one of them, want the bright lights of Madrid. I don't get it, but I don't want anybody who doesn't want to be here either. Darren Jones said, had high hopes of Ox 2. I've never wanted a player to shut up another fan base more than Oxlade-Chamberlain, because the absolute nonsense from Arsenal fans when we paid, what was it, 40 million or something for him, they thought they'd absolutely sold us a pup, and I think he repaid his value in the first season alone with that Champions League run and how important he was. And yeah, Oxlade-Chamberlain had some injuries with us, but I'll always think fondly of Alex. And of course, I always think of that little video with his missus on the steps as well. Sean Stacey said, money driven to go to Madrid. Maybe. But look, right now, Liverpool's a brilliant attraction for any player. With a great coach. And look, actually, one thing none of us have spoken about much is Arna's contract. Because if I remember correctly, he signed a 3-year deal when he joined Liverpool and has 2 years to go. So, of all the things we're talking about, him getting a new deal should be right at the top of that list, because we should be tying down Arna now as well. At least a 2-year extension, in my opinion, for a very well done job in season number 1. Adam said, honestly feel so sorry for Chiesa. Poor lad, never really got a chance to prove himself. Have you any anger towards DIAZ for wanting to leave? No, not anger. Not anger, because he hasn't done anything I would deem as toxic. He's showed up for pre-season with us. He's, trained. He's on the plane over to Hong Kong. So no, I've no issues with DIAZ wanting to leave. No bitter issues. I don't really understand it from a player ambition standpoint. But if Liverpool don't want to extend him and he's been offered €280,000 per week to go to Bayern, that's his decision. Like I've said, money is a huge motivation if you come from real poverty. And, I grew up okay. Never had to worry about food, never had to worry about heat, never had to worry about a roof over my head or anything like that. So I'll never judge anybody who wants to try and help out their extended family. And DIAZ, I feel, has been okay in the process. That's my take on it. Sonder said DIAZ 70, Nunez 60, Chiesa 20, Elliott 40, Morton 15, Doak 20 equals 235 million profit. RODRYGO 70, Isak 120, 190, and that's not everything we can sell. Yeah, I ran through my own numbers, Sonder, earlier on. And my numbers came into 310 without even talking about Canada. Kelleher 18, Kwanzaa 35 to 37, Darwin 50, DIAZ 80, Elliott 40, Morton 15, Costa 17, Doak 25, Trent 10, Phillips 3, Chiesa 15, and that comes to 310. So even if you think I went high in some numbers there, take 25 million off it, you're still at 280 million, which is nuts. So you asked me how I feel about DIAZ. How do you guys feel about the DIAZ situation? Because loads of people want him to stay, and I get it. I totally get it, because we've got good options there and he's coming off the back of his best season. But I just think 80 million quid, if Liverpool can get it, I think that's good business. And with the player as well open or exploring a move, I think it makes sense to just tie it all up, because it feels like there's been talk of him moving for 2 years at this point. As Dog said, Liverpool have agreed a £69 million move for Hugo Ekitike. Yeah, we agreed that one last night, mate. David Ornstein was the first one to say outline fee agreed, and then today, obviously, the formalities of it were all put together. €69 million plus 6 million or €9 million an add-on, something like that. Pro Footballer said Diaz is a top player but turning 29 this year, and I've had enough of players that don't want to be at the club. Philly said as long as all parties are happy. Billy Beckner said, I mean, we can get really, really good money from him. I love Diaz and would be open for him to stay. But if he wants to go and can get good money, then I think everybody is happy. I think that's right. And again, it would be a position where I think there are really attractive options for Liverpool right now. RODRYGO obviously being one of the ones foremost that most of are thinking. Right, so we asked, and we're going to leave this running a little bit longer, is Isak to Liverpool possible? Keep voting on it, and we'll look at it back in a while. I know I ask this question at least 3-4 times a week, but I want to see how people's thought processes are changing on it. Off the post said, I think his behaviour during this tough time has been poor. He needs to go to Bayern. Norman said, I'd rather choose Wirtz as left wing than Diaz. We still have Gakpo. Mart, URB, said, hope we get a contract rumour free season. Tired of all this. Want to focus on the footy. 100% agree, mate. It took some of my enjoyment away from last season, having the situation with Trent, with Mo, and with Virgil hanging over our heads all season. Even knowing that Mo and Virgil wanted to stay, it definitely did take its toll for me as a fan. But what really angered me was having to play nice with people who didn't think Trent was pulling a fast one. That was what really I found tough last year. Because my job on here is to hear all perspectives and to give you mine. But I knew that there was only one way this Trent thing was headed, and everybody knew. But there's some mad football world where we all have to take everything at face value, and we have to pretend that everybody's brilliant and nobody has self-serving interests and they're all good people. That's just not life, is it? It's just not life. And like I said, you don't need to be fucking talked into staying. You don't need 6 months to make a decision. It was really clear what he wanted to do, and it was tough. It was so hard because I wanted to just come on and shout, and I really wanted to be even more firm on it. But I wanted to be respectful of people who wanted to think well of somebody. Because again, in that, like Darwin, I take no pleasure coming on and telling people Darwin's going. None. But it's going to be a fact. And I know people want him to do well, and it's great that people want to stay supportive of a player who hasn't worked. It's the most difficult part of my job is to criticise an opinion that's backing a player. But, sometimes tough love is what's needed in the situation. Darren said none of the three was worrying. Really? Fair enough. I mean, I can't tell you how you felt, mate. That's your opinion. I was worried particularly about Virgil. Now, look, for what it's worth, I think the way it panned out was probably my best case scenario for what I thought would happen. So, I always felt Trent was gone, and I was just hoping then that the other two stayed. Ivo. Thank you, by the way, for being a member with us for 3 months, my man. I don't think we will sign Isak this season. Look, again, I can't sit here and say you're mad for saying that or not. I think we're going to find out quickly what's going to happen with Isak. Like I said, I don't know if you seen the comments attributed to his agent. I'll run you through them right now, just in case you're joining us a bit late. Magpie Media said, breaking, Newcastle striker Alexander Isak's agent, speaking to Saudi Arabian newspaper Ariadia, said, we're studying and analysing our options, and we may be close to finalising the next step for the player without revealing any details of a transfer. What do you make of that? Because that sounds like to me like they're planning a move. And I'm not saying that move to Liverpool, by the way, I'm not. But it defo sounds like they're planning a move. Lauro said, "How are we, mate? We look brilliant versus Stoke." Yeah, I really enjoyed the 13-minute highlights that were up on All Red earlier on. Looked really sharp. Now, you don't want to overlook into pre-season, but it felt like Wirtz's brain was operating at 95%, but he physically didn't need to get past 60. I thought Salah looked sharp. I love the movement from Soboslai. Rio has always looked dangerous. Trainee only had some nice passes as well in the game. Again, though, getting a look in second half. Frimpong bombing down the right hand side was very interesting as well. Even young Pekchi getting a little taste as well. It was good to see, and it was a nice little treat as well, because I wasn't expecting to see Liverpool playing today, and getting to see Wirtz in a Liverpool shirt on the pitch for the first time was lovely. Tony Hausman said, "I knew coming in today people would say Darwin scored a hat-trick, but personally think it's too late and he's had his chance. Wirtz and others could help with chances for him, but he'd missed them." It is too late. You're right to feel that way. The only thing that could potentially keep him at the club now is nobody bidding. That's the only thing. Apart from that, I don't think there's any hope in hell. If Liverpool get an offer that hits 50 million, I think he's gone. And I think we will get that offer. Ricky said, when we were given 3 mil and signed Kyriakos, the big Greek. Yeah. And even, do you remember Pellegrino before that as well under Rafa? Such a slow centre-back. Andre Voronin as well, Chuck Norris. That was it was dark days there, mate. Right, Lolly, how are we, dude? Hope you're having a good weekend, my friend. Said, "Hi, Craig. Diaz has 3 years to make some decent cash. Understandable, isn't it? Good luck to him." Well, whatever wage we think he's on now, Lolly, whether it's 55 grand or 140 grand, he's not struggling to pay the bills. And I dare to say, if he'd never kicked the ball again, he probably wouldn't have to work again. But, like you've mentioned, €280,000 a week, which is about 220, 230 in pound. That's good money as well. And yeah, he's got 3-4 years left at the very top level to make big money, and fair play. As long as Liverpool are comfortable with it, I'm comfortable with it. Michael said, "Isak will have to decide whether he wants to play Premier League and Champions League football or big money from Saudi." It's a tough one, isn't it? Because you don't know the answer to the question until you know what motivates people. And I don't judge people for what motivates them. I judge people for lying, like Henderson. But I don't judge people who say, "Yeah, I'm going for the money." Cool, go get paid, no problem. There's some footballers who don't even particularly like football that play football. They just happen to be really good at it. Some people are motivated by trophies. Some people are motivated by legacy. Some people are motivated by money. All I ask for as a fan is honesty. And that's why the Trent situation pissed me off. The Henderson situation annoyed me, because I didn't feel they were being honest. That's all I ever want. If somebody says, I want to go and try something new, grand. Off you pop. Make sure it works for the club, and we get as much money as we can, and away they go. But this speaking out of both sides of your mouth shit just doesn't wash with me. And that's why when somebody said to me earlier on, "How are you feeling about Diaz?" I mean, he hasn't been perfect in the situation, but he hasn't gotten dirty. And that's what I said about Isak as well, by the way. Nobody ever wants these situations to get toxic. And I've no doubt in my mind that Isak is in debt to Newcastle for the chance to play in the Prem, for Champions League football, for giving him the platform and the coaching to move him on as a player. I've no doubt he loves the Newcastle fans. I've no doubt he enjoys playing at St James's Park. But ultimately, he has a chance to join a club that can maybe win the Champions League and the Premier League. And Newcastle aren't going to do that, I don't think, in his prime. Tom said, I know it wasn't a serious game, but what did you think of the preseason game against Stoke? Only just joined the live stream. Not sure if you said it earlier. I was really pleasantly surprised, Tom, at how sharp some of the players looked. Like I mentioned earlier on, Wirtz's brain was just a joy to watch. You see, he was already thinking before he even receives the ball what to do with it next. I thought Leone looked good. Hard to say when we only got 13 minutes of it, we didn't get the whole game, but I thought we looked like we had gears to go through. The movement was sharp and we were creating space, lots of overloads down the flanks. Frimpong in the second half looked ridiculous with his pace. Darwin looked sharp and, again, good finishes for his hat-trick, especially the second one. I thought the second one was probably the pick of the bunch. Yeah, good. Handy minutes for the lads to get as well. Martin Aston said, this will be Arne Slot's team next season. It'll be interesting to see how we play. It's looking fire. It's looking ridiculous. Mate, I don't even know what to say anymore. Like, there is a world where we could end up with 2 more top-notch forwards. Whether it's Rodrigo, whether it's Isak, whether it's young Malik Fofana, whether it's Anthony Gordon, whether it's somebody we haven't even spoken about yet. We ain't finished. And that is so damn exciting when we've already brought in Frimpong, Kirkes, Mamardashvili, Wirtz, Ekitike. It's insane. It feels like someone's going to pinch me and say, Dad, this isn't real. Will you wake up? Like, stop, this isn't real. Right, so again, the poll was, is Isak to Liverpool possible? 62% today think yes, it is possible. I'm at 70% that it's possible he leaves Newcastle, but I'm not sure if I feel it will be to move to Liverpool or not. I really, his agent's comments have me feeling very likely that he leaves, but I don't know if there's a move to Saudi on the cards that we don't know about. But I wonder how Newcastle fans will react to that. They probably try to make out like they're happy that they've kept him out of the clutches of Liverpool, but they're still going to lose him ultimately. Somebody said, please, Craig, no to Anthony Gordon. Look, Rodrigo for me over Gordon every day of the week. But like I'm saying, it's just an option I know Liverpool are looking at. But if you ask me, I'd prefer Rodrigo. Craig, after you read that out about EA, I do feel he's going to go to Saudi. Maybe. Like I'm saying, it's not out of the realms of possibility he goes to Saudi, but do you know what? As mad as it sounds, I feel a bit for the lad, because there's a comment that Eddie Howe made yesterday that stuck in my mind, and it's not the one about why he didn't play Isak. It was the one that said he understands that a player's career can be short. And remember, Eddie Howe, I think, finished his football career at a relatively young age because of injuries and went into management. So I think he understands, deep down, the situation with Isak. And I do think that football clubs in general don't want to deny the ambitions of players who want to show what they can do on the world stage and win the biggest prizes. So something in my mind feels like there's a chance. But I don't know. It would be such a waste if he went to Saudi. It just would. Just for the Premier League, for football, for his ambition, it would just be mad. It would just feel like... It just feel wrong, wouldn't it? Just would. The hopeful guy said, how exposed too much about the transfer? He is clearly willing to go. I said to you guys last week that Isak wants to join Liverpool, and he does. But I also said he'll be respectful of the situation, and nobody knew what was going to happen when he came back to pre-season, what way him and his agent were going to receive Newcastle's refusal to acknowledge, or their perhaps inability to really bump up his contract all that much and still have the ability to strengthen in and around him. Imagine Isak went to Arsenal since Gyökeres is stalling. There's no way Arsenal have the ability to spend that money, mate. It would be the twist of all twists in this transfer window for sure. But, you know, if Arsenal are nickel and diming over a few million quid in add-ons for Gyökeres, I can't see the £150 million Newcastle are apparently asking for Isak being possible. Vimal said, Lucho leaving will have no bad taste like Trent. For me, he will leave a legend. If Trent had been honest and not played us fans all year, no problem. Same. I agree. And I said it all the way through the year, mate. If Trent had fronted up the camera and said, you know what, I've been 20 years at this club. I've lived my dream. I've won everything I can win here. But I have a desire to try something new. And Madrid have been interested in me. And I love the project over there. And we all kind of knew Alonso was going to become the next manager as well. And if he had just said, I want to give it a go, I don't think there would have been anywhere near the backlash. Now, I can't speak for born and bred Scousers, and I never would try to speak for them. But I think people would have at least understood it. Rather than this bullshit of, oh, he's being respectful by not talking in the media. Is he? No, he's not. He's letting Liverpool get rinsed in the media and say nothing. That's the way I looked at it. Jamie Hall said, I'm starting to wonder if Isak's agent has gone in person to persuade the Newcastle owner to sell him. Do you know what, mate? That's a good show. That's a good show. Yeah, that's a really, really good show. Al Hilal have already started talks with Alexander Isak's entourage and know the terms of a transfer. Newcastle are asking for €130 million, which sounds very low. Isak has agreed to open negotiations with the Saudis without confirming a move there, but to at least listen to the financial and sporting arguments of the club, reports Tanzaloik. Don't know, but if he's available, why not let Liverpool into the conversation? Like I've said, this all could have been done a week ago, and Newcastle could have been closing in on Ekitike now. It feels like Newcastle have played this poorly to me. Right, what else are we at? Craig, do you think Nunez will be happy as a bench player? No, I don't think any player at his age would be happy as a bench player. Same reason that I think that's why Harvey Elliott moves on. You know, these guys want to get minutes. But unlike, let's say, Chiesa, Darwin can't say he wasn't given the chance to succeed at Liverpool. It just didn't work. Ramworld, VR, thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Because they think we're rivals. Maybe, but look at it a different way. If they wanted Elliott, there could have been a conversation there. If they wanted Darwin, there could have been a conversation there. If they wanted Ekitike, we could have stepped aside. But if they're going to lose him anyway, if they really are just going to go to the point of not strengthening a rival to lose him, I think they've shit the bed, and I think they've cost themselves transfer targets. But, you know, like I've always said, he's a Newcastle player, and they're perfectly within their rights to demand no money, no deal, 150 million, whatever it is. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like this is going to be the ending that Newcastle fans wanted, which is Isak to still be there. And for all of them kicking up fuss and shouting at us Liverpool fans, doesn't look like he'd be there by the start of the season to me. They have to sell for market value to Saudi because of ownership conflicts. Yeah, like I said, it feels like if they sell him to Saudi, it's just because they want to keep him out of Liverpool's hands, which again is their prerogative. But they should have done this earlier. And then they, and I know the Saudi window's only open, but they could have had this conversation. Isak and Gordon for Darwin, Elliott and Chiesa. Look, I don't know what Darwin's thoughts are in this. Like I've said, we can all speculate and talk about potential moves here or there. But ultimately, the players have to be open to these moves as well. So what we did learn today, though, is AC Milan are still in the table or in the mix for Darwin Nunez. So Gary Jacob reported AC Milan and Al Hilal are both interested in Darwin Nunez. The striker is still expected to leave Anfield this summer. Bild in Germany reporting Bayern Munich have paused negotiations with Nick Vultmada to focus on the Luis Diaz signing. The transfer fee is still pending negotiations, but Bayern are positive about the matter. And like I said about Mark Ogden as well, he had a couple of reports today about Isak and kind of just making the argument that he can't be happy with what he's seen happening at Newcastle because they're not really strengthening in and around him. Ian Doyle said Liverpool are bracing themselves for a fresh approach from Bayern for Luis Diaz, with the Bundesliga side ready to test Liverpool's resolve. Liverpool will not entertain any sale during this transfer window unless they're given a proposal that would be deemed impossible to turn down. And then this from L'Equipe said, Real Madrid have asked Liverpool what type of offer might convince them to sell Ibrahima Konate this summer. And for what it's worth as well, by the way, loads of reports, I think all reports suggesting that Ekitike will sign a 6-year deal at Liverpool. Craig, would you go for Iñaki Williams? No, he's too old now, mate. And his brother just signed a new deal. So, no, I'd stay away from Iñaki Williams, and Nico Williams just signed a new deal. Frank Slater said, after nearly 70 years of being a Liverpool fan, there's never been a window like this for me. Dude, I'm right here with you. Not 70 years as a Liverpool fan, but right there with you talking about the window, mate. I couldn't agree more, Frank. Right, a couple of things, ladies and gentlemen. Our Anfield Agenda WhatsApp community passed 9,000 people in there tonight. If you would like to join us and take part in our polls, maybe shape the future content on the channel and certainly get some insights into transfers and the inner workings of my noggin, scan that QR code there and join us. Also, like I mentioned earlier on, last show is on sale now. We're going to be in Liverpool October the 19th at the Hot Water Comedy Club. Tickets are priced at just £15. They're about 40% sold already, maybe a bit over that. If you want to come, it's the weekend of the Manchester United game. It's an all-ages event, and again, you can get your tickets with the QR code. Lucky Charm said the offer of selling us Rodrigo will get it over the line. It definitely feels like it wouldn't be out of the question, right? Hassan said we need a better striker than Ekitike. I'm willing to give him a chance, mate. I understand your concerns, and I understand that it's a big leap up for him. But I also do trust that the club feel comfortable with it. Since we signed Ekitike, though, I've always had a thought process that maybe Isak is going to come as well, and we will have both of them as options, maybe one of them pushing out towards the left a bit. Right, what's this one? Yeah, we're going back into this same report that I mentioned earlier on about Isak and the €130 million and the Al Hilal stuff. But again, you're forcing him to Saudi, to a league that's inferior at the prime of his career, just to keep him out of the arms of Liverpool. What message would that also send to potential targets that Newcastle want to bring in the future? You know, if you come here, do well, make the step up, well, we're going to make sure that you don't go to a top club. It'll be off to Saudi or nothing for you. I don't think that's great either. Best transfer season Loyal from 1980, said Darren Jones. Craig, your thoughts on Frimpong today? The speed of him, Taylor. Woo! He was flying up and down that wing, wasn't he? Yeah, really impressive stuff. My dog's squeaking in the kitchen, making some weird noises. Drew said, we need to back Ekitike the way the rest of our boys. The reason I love the Liverpool community is we give them time to bed in, know that Arna will develop them. Definitely, mate. Like, there's loads of things that I've seen in clips of Ekitike that I could see him being the Bobby Firmino type number 9 rather than maybe bona fide a 35 goal a season fella. And if he does that and links up the play and chips in with a few, happy days. Even your dog doesn't believe the transfer window we're having. Yeah, I know. He's in there. He's moving mad. He kept saying to me, Newcastle are acting rough. I'll get my coat. Do you think that Isak to Liverpool would stunt Ekitike's growth? No, genuinely I don't, because I think one of them will be looked at as the second option on the left, potentially. But either way, we're going to play 65 to 70 games next season. And if anything, in a weird way, it makes me feel more comfortable about potentially signing Isak, because you don't have the same concern about, if he does pick up a knock, who's going to take the spot. You know, it means you could manage Isak if you needed to and still have Ekitike there. Just incredible options, and who knows how this window ends. But like we've mentioned, £500 million spent and a £200 million net spend isn't out of the realms of possibility. 6 weeks to go and it's starting to heat up again. What do you think is the bare minimum to achieve this season with the confirmed transfers? Oh, Victor, there's no denying, bro, that with this spending comes pressure. Like I said yesterday, I think it's Billie Jean King's quote, pressure is a privilege. But there's also no denying that expectation is going to be raised. And you have to finish with a big trophy this year. Minimum. And I'm not talking League Cup, FA Cup. You've got to either defend the Premier League or win the Champions League. That's the pressure. But again, this is the conversations we want to be having. We want to be going into the season with that feeling that this is what we should be achieving. But again, nothing is a guarantee in life, and you need a bit of luck along the way as well. Sugar Tiger, Super Tiger, don't know why I was calling you Sugar Tiger, dude, sorry. Super Tiger said, you need Ekitike to be the main goal scorer in 2 seasons' time when Salah leaves. It's smart planning to bring him in now to adjust without pressure of needing to get a large goal and assist return. I've often said, mate, on the channel, and I'm not sure how long your good self has been with us, but for me, it's always been a case of succession planning and not having to do that scrambling last minute. And like you've pointed out there, succession planning seems to be in hand now. And I like it. I like what you've said. I like the thought process, and I agree. Arna has admitted his brief from the owners was to win the Champions League. That'll not have changed. I can't imagine the brief wasn't go show us that we backed the right man. But also, like I've said, we need to talk about Arna's contract as well, because he's 2 years to go now, and we want to make sure we're tying him down, because we've just backed him to an insane extent in the market. It's time to give him that era of domination now. So I'd be very surprised if we don't see a new contract for Arna maybe a month or two into the new season. Anyone know where I can find the 30-minute highlights? I don't know if it's on the Liverpool YouTube, mate, but it is on All Red. On the Liverpool website. You can sign up to get a free month, I think, on there as well. Speed Edits, excuse me, said, or SP Edits even, I'll get your name right eventually, dude, sorry. What would be the Rodrigo price if we buy him? There's variations between 70 and 80 million pound is the numbers that I'm seeing been mentioned. But I've not yet seen a confirmation that Rodrigo has decided to leave. I know he's thinking about his future, but as of yet, I don't know that there's been a confirmation that he's definitely leaving. But if he does leave, you'd have to think we'd be in the mix. We can't bring in too many young players. I don't think we are, though. Like, if you look at our squad, it probably needs the profile age changing a little bit. Virgil, Mo, they're very experienced. Alisson, very experienced. But if you're looking at the type of goalkeeper we've brought in to back up, again, an experienced keeper, but young in profile. Gakpo's coming into a beautiful age profile now as well. Wirtz is, again, right at the start of the upper part of his career, where the trajectory is just going to keep going. Centre backs, well, we are going to look to bring in that 24-year-old if Canade leaves. If not, it'll be a young one. We've just refreshed the profile at left back with, again, a Premier League tried player. Frimpong on the other side, young, but again, very experienced. Sean Taylor said, I honestly think we get Isak and Fofana from Lyon. That could be possible, Sean. Wouldn't rule that out, mate. I don't think with a good conscience, mate, I could rule out any combination of Isak, Gordon, Rodrigo and Fofana. I don't think any of us could say categorically that two of those players aren't possible. David said, feel sorry for Chiesa. He hasn't had a chance. I know, I get it. Now, we don't know what happens, behind the scenes. We don't know the conversations. We don't know what was told to him when he joined. But you are right, mate. He hasn't really had 30 opportunities to go out there and show us what he can do. It's one of those transfers I'll never fully understand. Who made it? Whose thought process it was? It just feels like an opportunistic one where we thought maybe we could bring him in. If he works, brilliant. If he doesn't work, then maybe we play him enough that we can still make a profit on it. But it just feels a bit weird. If we don't consider Saudi, where do you think Isak could go if it's not Liverpool? Nowhere. I don't think there's anybody else with the money. Unless Paris Saint-Germain suddenly come in and say they want them. They'd have the money, all right. You're not going to get City coming in. They've got Haaland there. Arsenal, I don't think, have the money and also are going for another striker. Real Madrid don't really have the need, do they, to bring in a striker? Barca don't have the money. I don't see anywhere else other than us stay at Newcastle or go to Saudi. That's the only things I can think of. What have I missed about the Isak news? So, Hayden, there was a report that came out tonight. Let me just read it out to you again, bro. And the report was actually from a Newcastle source, but it was from Magpie Media. I want to give them their credit. Said, breaking, Newcastle striker Alexander Isak's agent speaking to Saudi Arabia newspaper Ariadia via KSA Mag said, we are studying and analysing our options and we may be close to finalising the next step for the player without revealing any details of a transfer. His words, the agent's words, talking about transfers. Then we had a report from Tanziloik, I believe is the name, said breaking Al Hilal have already started talks with Isak's entourage and know the terms of a transfer. Newcastle are asking for 130 million. They say euro. Now, I surely that's not right because that's about 100 million pound. It has to be pound, surely. Isak has agreed to open negotiations with the Saudis without confirming a move there, but to at least listen to the financial and sporting arguments of the club. So it feels like they just don't want to sell him to us at this point, and that's their prerogative, but let's wait and see. I've always told you this stance of not for sale never felt real. It always felt like there's a number. Aiden said, we're not getting Isak. Mate, he's going somewhere. He's going somewhere. And our interest is still there. Nasser said, Craig, coming in late, is there really a chance for Isak? And if he does come, what would our front three look like? Well, again, I don't think we can talk about a front three as in only one front three, because there's going to be lots of variations over the course of a season. It would look something like maybe Gakpo or Ekitike left, Isak central, Wirtz in behind, Salah on the right. If Rodrigo comes in, it would look something like maybe Rodrigo and Gakpo as the left options, Ekitike through the centre, Wirtz in behind, Salah on the right. Loads of young Rio's in there, Szoboszlai's still in the mix. Who knows? It's insane. Jay said, I sense a Chelsea swoop. But again, there's no sense selling him to Chelsea and not us. It doesn't really make any sense, does it? And look, maybe Isak would want to go to Chelsea. I can't speak to that, but they'd still be selling to a rival, so why not sell to us? I think they want us to pay more. Well, if it's about money, then at least have that conversation, because remember, Eddie Howe and Michael Edwards, Eddie Howe and Richard Hughes are friends. They were both at Bournemouth together as players, and then obviously as Eddie Howe went in to become a manager. So the channel of communication will be there. Liverpool inquired about Isak, were told no, moved on to Ekitike, but now the Newcastle stance on Ekitike or on Isak's changed a little bit. Right, folks, I'm going to go and record the update video because I've got 3 or 4 messages in my inbox that I haven't got around to yet that I need to check in on before we can record the late night update. I can't believe how quickly 2 hours have flown by, but thank you again for joining me. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do, and don't forget to drop a like on the stream as well. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow, and appreciate your support as always. Don't forget to join the WhatsApp community as well. Just scan that QR code on the screen and it will bring you right in. We'll talk tomorrow, my friends. Much love. Bye-bye.